Well, risks to public finances are high, and let me highlight three main risks. The first key risk is that long-term government bond yields in the US remain high, and they're uncertain, and there's a lot of uncertainty in terms of inflation prospects and monetary policy decisions. For example, we saw that long-term treasury yields spiked in March when the new inflation prints came out. And last week there was another spike as new inflation data came out of the US. And this can create more volatile financial conditions for other countries. A second key risk is that economic activity in China could be weaker than expected, and this could weigh on global growth and global trade. For those countries that have very close economic relationships with China through trade and financial and investment challenges, there could also be pressure on public finances. A third key risk comes from what we call the great election year. In 2024, around 50% of the world's population will be holding some kind of an election. And history shows us that in general, during election years, governments tend to tax less and spend more. So all of these risks to public finances are coming at a time when debt levels are high in many parts of the world, and medium-term growth prospects for countries are much weaker.
التوسع الذي شهدناه في الإنفاق والذي ارتبط بأزمتي كورونا وأوكرانيا، هل تعتقدين أننا سنستمر في هذا التوسع في الإنفاق، وخاصة أنه لدينا أزمات سياسية جيوسياسية ما زالت مستمرة؟
The fiscal support that was put together during the pandemic and the energy price shock was really to save lives and to protect the most vulnerable against cost of living increases. Now we're at a time when debt levels are very high in many parts of the world. Growth prospects are much weaker, and the potential for higher for longer interest rates remains. So in this juncture, there's much limited scope for governments to act as the insurer of the first resort. And it's important to note that quite apart from cyclical challenges that countries are facing, there are also long-term structural challenges. Let me explain. For example, countries are facing spending pressures to address climate change. Countries are also facing spending pressures to meet priority spending. For instance, for developing countries, achieving the Sustainable Development Goals is a priority. So when you start adding all these spending needs together, our estimates say that it could be as high as 7 to 9% of GDP per year through 2030 for emerging market economies, and about 14% per year for low-income countries. Now, these are very sizable numbers, and most of them are not accounted for in current and medium-term fiscal plans. And this is why the IMF is advocating that countries undertake fiscal adjustment in order to create more budgetary room for maneuver in order to be able to pay for this priority spending and to bring debt down.